Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Zach, and on this channel I mostly review science fiction and fantasy books, but also delve into the full spectrum of books from comics to manga, personal development, business, and a little bit of everything in between. And this is my once a week segment where I also catch up on what other media I've been consuming this past week in addition to books, so I can yap and talk about movies and TV that I watched this week. But to start things off with what I've been reading and what I finished, first of all, is finishing 2 books in 1 week, which is a bit of a cheating because I was almost done with the first book, and then the second book I unexpectedly got my hold early and devoured it in a single week. So to start things off with what I finished up, which is what I was reading last week, and that is John Steinbeck's East of Eden. This is a book that again took forever to get my library hold because it's a super popular book. It's one of those Reddit darlings of books that are constantly recommended on the larger book subreddits, not just the ones I hang out on, which are mostly the fantasy subreddit, but on the general Reddit, like Suggest a Book and just books. They recommend books like Lonesome Dove and East of Eden. So after hearing about it in real life from a colleague at a work conference last year, I was like, yes, I'm going to give it a shot and put it on my queue. So I finally got East of Eden and really enjoyed myself as a mostly fantasy reader. It was just really interesting world, even though it's our world, it's set in the US. The fact that it is in real life in a different time, so it felt almost like a fantasy world. It's that late 1800s, early 1900s, turn of the century, right after Civil War, right after the Indian Wars and the frontiers on the West. So California is just sort of being settled. It's post-Civil War, pre-World War I, and into World War I. So it's a generational story, and it was just really interesting writing. I like the characters, even though I didn't love them in the sense that like a fantasy series where I was really rooting for a protagonist who's on some sort of epic quest. There was an interesting character-driven story, which is not normally my favorite. I'm more of a plot world builder, getting lost in these crazy fantastical worlds, but I really enjoyed my time in the world, or our world of East of Eden, in that time period, I should say, not our world, but it was a very interesting study of the characters and all revolving around Timshel, thou mayest, the theme of the book, the final word in the book. It was, just an interesting meditation on families and the choice to be good, which is like kind of tracing generational trauma or generational choices to be good, whether it's drilled in through generations or you have the choice to choose to be good or evil, like if you're a Kate or a Kathy, the antagonist of the story. But anyways, it was a decent read. And after I finished that, early in the week, I picked up Book of the New Sun, Book 3. But then on release day, which was September 28th, my hold that I forgot I had placed came through because the library got a new copy of it, and that is Alchemised by SenLinYu. So this is a book that kind of unexpectedly got added to my queue because I remember reading it on like a Goodreads or New York Times and just seeing it was a dark fantasy world with necromancy and memory loss. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And it was listed along the upcoming releases. So I just added it to my library queue thinking, I'll give it a shot. I'll just, read a couple chapters. Non-committal, I could return early, no loss because it's from the library. But my colleague, when I was doing my master's degree, Patricia, she was talking about this, and I didn't realize we were talking about the same book because she was talking about, a Harry Potter fan fiction that she loved called Manacled, which was getting traditionally published as a book. She didn't mention the name. Then I said, I have a dark fantasy book I'm also about to start because I just got it. And it turned out, yes, we were talking about the exact same book. So Alchemized is the traditional published version of the Harry Potter, Draco and Hermione fan fiction, and it was surprisingly really well written. SenLinYu is actually a pretty darn good writer for someone who this is their debut novel, who I guess they do have writing chops because they've published fan fiction, and it's one of the largest fan fictions, most popular fan fictions I think of all time, especially in the Harry Potter, Hermione subgenre. So it was a very interesting read, and back to my earlier point of things I enjoyed about it is I like the world building a lot. I'm not a big romantasy fan. I've read a couple romantasy adjacent, like I guess you could say Iron Widow series and Heavenly Tyrant, the second Iron Widow. Those are a bit romantasy adjacent novels. There's definitely a large romance subplot. Maybe you could argue some R.F. Kuang, like Katabasis. It has maybe not romantasy, but it has a enemies to lovers plot like Alchemised / Manacled. So I've read similar stuff recently. And again, most that I enjoyed about it was the Dark Harry Potter alternate universe. So even though it's changed for traditional publishing, it's no longer uses the names Hermione. Hermione is now Helena. Draco is now Kane. So all the names and places are changed. It's not England, it's Palladia. So it's in this Harry Potter world, and I definitely knew it was Harry Potter. It's like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, this is not Harry Potter, but it's clearly Harry Potter. But SenLinYu does change enough things where it does feel like a new world. You have the Order of the Phoenix, which is now rebranded as the Eternal Flame. And there, instead of being the Eternal Phoenix, the Order of the Phoenix, this resistance fighters against Voldemort. There are now a more religious order who is centered around like a dynasty of the Holdfast, which are the Potters of this world. So Luke Holdfast is the Harry Potter stand-in, and this leader of the resistance, this young prince who is destined to take down the High Necromancer, aka Voldemort. He has the weight and burden of his upbringing, and Hermione / Helena is doing everything she can as a healer to protect Harry / Luke. And along the way, yes, she gets caught up with Draco and Draco / Kane, and they develop a love-hate relationship that turns to love after some, of course, very interesting events. Don't want to spoil too much, even though if you're a Manacled fan, yes, I think the plot beats are pretty much the same as far as losing your memory and then a time skip to the past to fill in what happened and how Hermione / Helena lost her memory. And that was the section from a 3-part book, the second section where we go back to the war and Hermione / Helena is fighting, and it's a very bleak, darker version of the Harry Potter universe. So I love the world building. The descriptions that SenLinYu writes is very convincing. I felt the bleakness of this gritty Star Wars lived in resistance universe. That's in my mind kind of where it was going. How in the Star Wars movies, yes, everything's dirty, it's not clean. Star Trek, this is the resistance fighting back in the dirt, getting their hands dirty on the front lines, losing lives. So lots of gore, lots of trigger warnings for some sexual assault, of course, scenes. If you've heard about Manacled, it does have that same subplot returns in Alchemized. But overall, I blazed through it. I finished. It's a pretty long audiobook. It's like 36 hours. And when I started, I was telling Patricia, hey, I don't know if I'm going to finish this. 36 hours is a pretty hefty commitment, especially even for fantasy. It's a chunk or doorstopper of a book. And I just end up always having on. So it's a very easy writing prose style. So I was always, heavy dialogue, I guess, because it doesn't need to world build as much, since we know that it's already in the Harry Potter world. You don't need to describe everything in details, and we as readers know what SenLinYu is talking about when they write about it. So it was very easy to get into the world once I got the names correct in my head, which did take a little bit of time to say, okay, Luke is Harry, Helena is Hermione, and just to associate in my mind so that I could keep relationships in the general sense straight in my mind. But overall, it was a surprisingly decent read, even though, yes, I personally could have maybe done without some of the romance scenes, and they could have toned some of that down for my taste. But I know, like my friend Patricia, who absolutely loves Hermione and Manacled, she was gleefully exclaiming how much she loved all the scenes in Alchemized. So if you are a fan, you are going to love this. If you're a traditional fantasy fan, you can maybe skip it if you don't like too much romantasy, because it's definitely a romance first and maybe fantasy second, but set in the Harry Potter world. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, it's kind of interesting. And oddly enough, yes, I've never read Harry Potter. I've watched the movies, so I understood the context. And even with that said, and maybe not knowing quite some of the details of the books, even though, yes, I am looking forward to the Audible new full cast recordings that are coming out in only a couple months that I will want to be picking up. But yeah, it was a easy read and a fun read. Maybe not fun is the wrong word for it, but it was enjoyable to learn about that world. So those are the two novels that I finished this week. And then, yes, today and yesterday, what I was finally back to is, now that Alchemised is over, I'm back to Book of the New Sun, Book 3, The Sword of the Lictor, and a little over halfway already on that. It's a very short book in comparison to Alchemised, and it's very weird. Again, it's very philosophical. I feel this is more philosophical than the previous book even was. Some of the passages I just listened to tonight, Severian is theorizing, and he's talking right now on the part where he's talking with Typhon, this like two-headed god. It's just crazy. They're talking and theorizing and about like the nature of the world and leadership, and yeah, it's just out there. If I had to equate it to like an anime, it's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. This is Severian's Bizarre Adventure. Every book in the series so far just keeps getting weirder, and I just really enjoy figuring things out with Severian, trying to understand what's going on. Even though, yes, it's a little disjointing, it's just very, trying to puzzle out and figure out what the heck is happening with Severian. What's he doing? He's meeting these creatures, these people, these aliens, like literal aliens from another planet. It's, very interesting writing. Still really enjoying Book of the New Sun. So that's what I'm reading. And then now finally to shift gears to what I watched. Watched a chunk of movies this weekend, so it was great to catch up on a bunch of movies. And to start things off with what we watched this weekend, the first movie was Trillion Game, the movie, the 2025 movie out of Japan, based on the comic, and I think there's also a TV series, Trillion Game. I wasn't really sure what it was. Based on the trailer, it looked like it was about gambling, and it sort of is because there's a casino involved, but it's more following these two friends that are building a company, and they're kind of like, one of their acquisitions is they're trying to build a casino on this island to make $1 trillion, and their company, the Trillion Game company, already owns like mobile games and stuff, but they, in this Trillion Game, the movie, they want to open a casino, and they're fighting in the sense of business fighting a rival to get the permits and kind of win the hearts of the island to open the casino. But it was fun. It was a decent, just very relaxing watch in that kind of manga/anime adaptation to live action style. And then for the next movie we watched, we switched gears and finished 2025 from Hong Kong called Behind the Shadows with Louis Koo. This was also a very so-so movie, maybe like a 3.5 or a 4 out of 5 rating. It was interesting where Louis Koo plays this private eye detective who is dealing with being hired to catch his own wife who's cheating, and at the same time he's also chasing down some other cases of cheaters, and he gets involved with a cop who is maybe the killer. And it's this kind of cat and mouse, police versus private eye that he's investigating like almost himself. And it was okay, but a little out there. Like he makes these choices that he has to go after the killer and not save his wife in one of the late scenes. It was like, okay, come on. I know he's morally, he's sticking to the case and going to save the girl, but he does it at the expense of his wife. But anyways, it was okay. Nothing like mind-blowing either for Behind the Shadows. And then to the next one, yes, we watched another, I believe, manga adaptation, which is My Special One, the 2025 movie from Japan. This one was a little more on the lighthearted side. This was our palate cleanser for the weekend. And the premise of My Special One is the nerdy girl from high school gets involved with the pop idol boy band, glamour guy, and she can't fall for him. He can't fall for her, but of course it's not enemies to lovers, but people that they don't want to acknowledge that they like each other. So think maybe like a Boys Over Flowers, where the two sides are at first opposed to each other, but then of course through the events of the movie, through some funny and heartwarming scenes, as we learn the tragic backstory of both our characters, that they come to realize that they really are the same, that the down on her luck nerdy girl is actually has a great heart, and the pop idol superstar who's actually a real person and someone that she could love, and they find each other at the end. So it's a little bit cliche, but it was a very palate cleansing after some heavy movies with Behind the Shadows. So that was my special one from 2025. And then we switched to, on Sunday, 2 American movies. We got back to the US with 2025's Freakier Friday, the remake of Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis. This one was another mediocre movie because it's a remake. It's the premise is, instead of switching with mother-daughter, it's mother-daughter, but the mother and daughter are grandma, mother, and then the daughter. So it's 3 generations plus the new husband's daughter. So it's a 4-way swap. It was a little bit cheesy, yes, where you kind of see where it was going. If you remember the original Freaky Friday, that they have to realize each other's point of view and why they're all mad at each other for the silliest reasons, because the whole plot hinges on them not wanting to move to London after the new wedding to the new boyfriend / husband to be, and everyone just not realizing the other person's point of view and how much they really love each other deep down. So you find that out at the end through a song. So a little cliche, very similar beats to the original, like all remakes lately. It pays homage to the original movie's story beats in Freakier Friday. And then lastly, we watched a very different movie that was maybe more heartfelt than funny, even though it was sort of a comedy dramedy. And that is Code 3 with Rainn Wilson from The Office fame. So this was a very interesting movie about paramedics and EMTs in Los Angeles. And the premise is a veteran EMT has one last shift, and he has to train the new rookie on the ins and outs of EMT life. So it was very interesting to see like a profession. Yeah, you don't really see glamorized at all. And the movie clearly states that when you see Rainn Wilson's character go into the diner, and the diner's got the sign saying free donuts and coffee for our heroes. And the cashier points at it and no, only police and firefighters. Paramedics, EMTs, yeah, you're not a hero. So it's definitely had a message to kind of root for the underdog, and why, these EMTs, basically you show in the movie, they get no respect from the public. They get no respect from the police. They have these scenes where the police come up and basically are hands off, and they're kind of the second class citizens of the medical world. The doctors look down on them, the police look down on them, the public looks down on them. But of course, we're sympathetic to our characters, and through Rainn Wilson, our sort of jaded 18-year veteran of being EMT, how he finds family, that found family trope through his coworkers. He has purpose of saving people. He's always doing things with his heart first, even though it may be against protocol. So he really does, you see, want to save people. And it's very comedy a bit because it's Rainn Wilson. So he has some comedic scenes. He breaks the fourth wall and talks directly to the camera a few times, like his office mates. And it's funny, but it does kind of give a message that we need to pay more respect to EMTs. So that was what we watched. And then to wrap this up, the season finale of Alien Earth was last week. And on the whole, I've been talking about this every week because we've been watching it every week. I rather enjoyed Alien Earth. I see why the critics say it wasn't so great. Yes, the human characters in Alien Earth do make some questionable decisions of safety. Yeah, let's send our $1 billion robots to save the brother, and let's give her just the paper cutter as a weapon, and they'll figure it out. They're gonna, they don't know about the aliens are there, but they're gonna fight aliens and into the rubble. And so, yes, there's a lot of scenes where it's just okay, really? But on the whole, I like the world building a lot. I think it expanded the lore of the Alien franchise. I like seeing Earth during the events that we follow in the movies in space. So you see Weyland-Yutani, the omnipresent corporation from the movies. So Weyland-Yutani is doing their deals on one side, even though we're following another corporation. We're following Boy Cavalier and Prodigy Corp. So it was very interesting. I like that corporate aspect of the Alien universe, but we still get aliens. The xenomorph is here. And we also expand the world because we see, yes, there's a bunch of specimens in the zoo, a bunch of different aliens that we haven't really seen before. The eye alien, the plant alien that we see in the final episode. So a lot of really interesting things. I thought it did really well. The only downer that I agree in is that nothing got resolved at the end. So you'd think end of a season would at least wrap up some of the plot lines, but it ends on a big what if. The Weyland Yutani's forces are finally, the reinforcements are coming to the island. The xenomorph is still out. The kids are still there. Boy Cavalier is still there. And it's very ends on a cliffhanger. And I did not like, that one critique is, I didn't like that. We didn't really get resolution, I felt, of any real storyline of the big picture storylines that have been running throughout the season. So overall, it was worth a watch. I enjoyed my time of watching all 8 episodes of Alien Earth. And then lastly, just what's up next in the queue. So this week and next couple of days, I'll probably be finishing up sort of the Lictor. And then after that, hopefully shifting back to Malazan Book 2, Deadhouse Gates. And if not, I only have about a week or so. So if it comes early, of Empire of Silence, the next book hold, which is book 1 of Sun Eater. So that may come early. You never know with the library, because yes, it might surprise me again, like last week, where suddenly I got Alchemized and then I tore through Alchemized because it's a library hold versus an Audible. But I have my Audibles forever waiting for me, Malazan. So I've excited to finish up Sword of the Lictor, Book of the New Sun on Audible, and start Malazan again on Audible, unless, I have nothing else in my library queue, so unless something pops up, that is the plan. So thanks for watching this talk of a couple of the books I've finished and what I'm currently reading, what I'm about to read, and what I watched this past week. So if you have any recommendations for books or movies, anything interesting to come out, yes, I saw that Fantastic Four is finally on streaming, so we do want to do a rewatch of Fantastic Four First Steps. That is hopefully on the docket whenever my son is available. He's been busy with school stuff, so we didn't have a chance this weekend, but maybe this coming weekend we'll have a chance to rewatch or watch for the first time Fantastic Four. But other than that, I don't know what else is coming out in the queue for movies. So if you have any movie recommendations or old stuff I missed, I'm happy to watch it and check it out. Thanks for watching, and have a great week and weekend. See ya.